This is Joy Truscott, and I love to introduce people who are magnificent. And one of the people who I have been trying to get to come into this beautiful space with me is my beautiful friend, Glenn-Douglas Haig. And he has the most remarkable story of survival. And the reason why I want to really interview Glenn is because we really are all in survival mode. Pretty much our lives can change at any given moment, and if we have the tools and the wherewithal to be able to make the adaptations, certainly we can do our life a whole lot better. So the big question, and welcome to
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here with you as always.
It's the best.
Thanks, Joy.
Your soul brother. This is what I feel about my beautiful friend.
Bit absent, but we're here now.
Yeah, we're here. So Glenn, this has been a big journey for you, and your journey started with a little bit of a journey that was going in a certain direction, and you knew where it was going, and then all of a sudden it fell apart.
Everything changed.
Can you give us a little sense of that?
Yes, I think in my mid-30s I was very busy with the classic idea of life and success and what we should all be doing. So I was working really hard, listing companies on the stock exchange, and had bought quite a big property in Johannesburg, and working and earning, and you know, all that driven ambition stuff that we get taught is what we're supposed to do. And fortunately for me at the time, I had a very lovely friend by the name of Kevin Factor, who introduced me to the concept of perhaps energy work, if you'd like to call it that. He had just come back from America and had done a lot of work with the American Indians, and so we really I remember one day he came out with his sage and his smudge feather, which came from an eagle, and he put us all in a circle and he started smudging us, and I thought, what is this guy up to? And that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. But then, of course, as I got to know that, and he introduced me to the medicine cards and things, I suddenly realized for the first time that we are not just this construct of mind. You know, we're not just our thoughts. And the world actually is far more mysterious and beautiful than what we originally anticipated. So that kick-started my journey. And as a result of his mother-in-law, bless her, she was a Reiki teacher at the time. And of course I started chatting to her, but in those days we still had to hide Reiki away in the garages in the back of someone's car. It was just not, I mean, I'm talking 1998 or so. So it was a little bit risque, but I loved it. I realized there was a truth that resonated for me. So that's how that all opened up. But still, I was still very much on my road to traditional success. And then I managed to sell the property that I'd been working so hard at, and on the third night in my new house in Johannesburg, some armed robbers broke into my house, and I was having post-dinner drinks with my neighbours and beautiful friends, and to cut a long story short, they ended up getting a fright. They recognised us, and I got shot 7 times through my stomach and legs, and that was in itself that was the big altering moment for me. But in that moment, weirdly enough, as I was walking across the room to tackle the guy with the gun, because I had my beautiful friends with me and they were parents. So all I could think of was, I can't leave Nikki and Renee to have no parents. Thank goodness they weren't there. They must have been teenagers at the time. And so my first thought was, I've got to protect Charles and Jill, you know, my 2 friends. And that's just what popped into my mind. I was single, I didn't have any family or anything, so that was my drive. But of course I'm not experienced in the art of self-defense or anything, so instead of picking up a weapon or a chair or something, I just went with my bare hands to go and get the gun away from this man. But unbeknownst to me, his 2 friends also had guns, so I got shot from the side more than from the front. I actually only got about 2 bullets from the front. The rest came from the side, and that was the pivotal event. And so that story unfolds in and of itself, but that's what changed my life direction primarily, you know, because it was, and it was very traumatic.
Yeah, I bet.
You know.
So what I understand about your story is that you had obviously gone into a place of huge injury, losing blood, and then there was something that was special about the moments after that, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think what was very interesting for me was even as they started shooting, I saw this piece of concrete explode above Jilly's head as the first bullet hit the wall, and I realized they actually are going to kill us, you know.
Oh.
So I jumped up to tackle this guy, and in the moment, it's true as they say in the movies, where everything slows down, and I went across the room, but the thing that struck me was I was absolutely clear and peaceful. There was not a stitch of fear in me. So that was quite interesting. I did it primarily out of sense of protecting my friend, you know. She was a mother. And it also occurred to me at that time that, oh my goodness, this is how I'm going to die. That I knew clearly that this is how my life was going to end. It hadn't really preoccupied me before, but it was completely clear. This is how your life ends. And I also remember feeling so grateful that I didn't have any unfinished business, as it were, or people that I was angry with or anything. Thank goodness my life was in quite a gentle place. And so I was very peaceful. And that was a surprise, to have that presence and not worry. And initially you don't actually feel anything. I could feel the bullets hitting me. I could feel my body pouncing, but I didn't feel the pain of it right there. And then eventually at one point, this guy we were having a whole Bruce Willis moment with a gun in my face and the gun in his face, and I was doing all this acting. And I thought, why am I struggling so? Because I'm quite a big, strong guy, and he was little. But I didn't realize how much blood I'd lost already by then. So I was getting weaker and weaker. And in that moment, this guy really did get on top of me, and the gun was in my face. And then my beautiful friend Charles, who was a builder, he was with me. I just saw this brown speckled arm come down and grab the gun and twist it, and he actually broke the guy's fingers off like that as he twisted the gun. And then I grabbed, or we both had it, and I put it in his mouth and I pulled the trigger, and it just went click. And I thought to myself, I looked up and thought, you know, God, you've got such a sick sense of humor. I'm full of bullets, and now it's the baddie's turn, and there's no bullets left, you know. It was a bit like that. And but then we struggled some more, and then Charles picked up one of my chairs to hit this guy on the head now, because he was really getting the better of me. But of course, in that moment, I flicked to the top, and the chair hit me on the back of the head.
No.
And it hit me so hard that it took to all my teeth. And Charles just went, oops, sorry, but... And I went, shit, Charles, I'm going to get you for this. And then we carried on. I mean, it was the most... Yeah, it just seems ridiculous, but this whole thing going on. And eventually he slithered out and ran off, and a trail of blood, which Charles and I then followed. But as I ran outside, I realized I couldn't feel my right leg. And I knew that something was very bad. I didn't actually want to look down. I came back into the dining room and sat down. I thought, oh, I suddenly feel very tired. And then I had my arms on the dining room table, and by now, thank goodness, Jilly's brother took her into the woods or into the trees outside, and then saved her in that respect. Then they came back in and they were fussing about Charles because he really had been shot badly through his leg. But I was just sitting there, and I looked down, and I just remember seeing this pool of blood underneath me, just getting bigger and bigger under the dining room table, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's mine. And I didn't want to look. And then I started getting very faint, and then of course the pain kicked in.
And adrenaline.
Because the adrenaline kept you going. Oh, so it was a weird kind of experience. But that was when it suddenly, and then I started shaking, and then Jilly is a nurse, or an ex-nurse, so I slumped down to the floor, and by then her daughter arrived, and she said, I heard her saying, Nikki, go and get some blankets, Glenn needs to be kept warm. And the next thing I hear her shouting, no, not his white woolly's blanket, he'll kill you, get the old ones. So this is also all going on in the middle of everything. Like, our humanness is still there, you know. She's still concerned about my beautiful white blanket. Anyway, so they wrapped me up, and my beautiful friend Brett had been staying with me. He'd been in rehab, he was a film director, and you know, that industry is very hectic, so he'd gotten a bit addicted to chemicals, I don't know what chemicals, but he was staying with me because, you know, it was a safe place. But he just that week, as the last stage of his recovery, given up cigarettes. So he got home on a Friday night at 10:30, and there was blood all over the walls, and I'm lying on the floor busy dying, and Jilly said to him, keep him awake. So he's leaning over me going, stay awake, Lenny, stay awake, stay awake. And I remember opening my eyes and he had 2 cigarettes in his mouth. He's going, stay awake. From not smoking, he lit 2 at once. So that was his concession to this story.
He deserved it.
Yeah, he did deserve it. Bless the poor guy. And that's when I started fading away and I started losing consciousness. And yeah, I mean, the ambulance arrived an hour and a half later, so the fact that I was still alive was a miracle. I just lay on the floor now with a blanket and Brett looking after me. I don't really know what else happened at that point. But then I do remember the poor paramedics going, oh, this guy's really heavy. Because I was doing lots of gym at the time, you know, so I was very strong, thankfully. And I remember in the back of the ambulance as we were heading out thinking, oh God, I wish I didn't live on a dirt road. This is so sore. Because bouncing. Yeah, and then the most interesting thing happened. Now, what I'd like to tell you is, at the time, I thought I was dreaming. But 9 months after I recovered, I was sitting in a little restaurant with my godson, who was about 5 or 6 at the time, and his mom, and I recognized the man sitting at the table next door, and I kept saying to Crinks, I know this guy, I know him from somewhere. And then I looked and he had a little 911 badge, and I thought, he's the paramedic. He's the paramedic that's you know, that was looking after me. And then I just thought I have to go and speak to him. So I said, I'm so sorry to interrupt. And I shook his hand. I said, my name is Glenn. Are you a paramedic? And he said, yes. And I asked him, did you come and... I said, I'm sure you're the guy that saved me. I just wanted to say thank you. And he looked at me and said, no, I didn't save you. He says, I don't know who you are. And I said, because I was on my sticks. And I said, no, I explained the whole thing. And then he suddenly dawned on the fact that it was me. And he remembered the event. And he just started sobbing and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I said to him, well, what do you mean? And he said, but he said, I didn't come and see you in the hospital because you didn't make it.
Oh.
He said, I follow up on all my patients, but you didn't make it. We sent you out the back of the ambulance with a sheet over your head.
Oh.
So that's why he didn't recognize me, you see.
Oh,
yeah. So I thought, really? So then and of course now he's sobbing in the spur, and he's just, I get a bit emotional now because he kept saying, you're a miracle, you're a miracle. And I was going, well, I don't know, you're the guy who saved my life, you know. And then he said, please come and sit down. And we sat a little bit and he told me the whole story. And he was the one who told me that I had actually died in the back of the ambulance. And I died like 20 minutes before we got to the hospital. So they'd given up on me. I mean, and then he asked me what I remembered, and so we had the conversation, and he made everything clear for me because I thought that it was a dream that I'd had. I didn't really know that I died. I just thought it might have been a result of the drugs or something. So he really helped me join the dots, and that's when the story really gets interesting because now I've got a bit of clarification or validation of this apparent dream that I had. And then I realized, okay, so this is interesting. Yeah. So I apologized to his wife and kids and said, listen, I've got to hear what, you know. And they said, of course. So we sat and we ate. Well, we were on dessert by that stage or whatever. So yes, I had my story told to me from the living point of view, and I experienced it from my side, and that really was very, very enlightening, I think.
That is the story to capture. So. We're going to just take a break, and then this story is going to go on, and we're going to hear some more from our lovely Glenn because it's a miracle, and this man is a miracle.
Thanks, Joy.
It's awesome. I've heard your story a few times, and I'm still there.